Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pancake Parlay, episode 78. I am your host, the Don, and as always, I'm here with my lovely co-host, not the Don, because I am the Don. It's Chatters.
How's it going? It's Chatters. I mean, the Don.
We should have one of those shows that we do like a role reverse, like you're that person,
Oh
I'm that
yeah, like I
person.
call you one thing, and you call me something else. I
Yeah,
get
and then
you.
everyone gets confused. But yeah, that's basically us. Please like, share, and subscribe our videos because it's gonna really help us. I guess quite a bit when it comes to YouTube and all that stuff. But today we're gonna be talking about some Chernobyl, 13 Reasons Why, a lot of DC stuff as always. And let's just start off with one of our main news points, which is DC related, is that we pretty much got a casting for the James Gunn Suicide Squad movie. We don't know if it's called Suicide Squad 2, or they're going to be calling it Suicide Squad parentheses whatever it may be.
Suicide Squad 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yep, that's always the joke. And I originally thought that with this Suicide Squad movie that they were going to distance themselves away from that previous movie and everything in it. However, just to skip a little bit of ahead, the I guess the casting, there is people from the last movie, Suicide Squad, that are in this movie.
Yeah, like Jai Courtney, right? He's
Captain Boomerang, which I feel like was
Captain
very
Boomerang.
underutilized. I guess when it came into the Suicide Squad movie, I felt like he was a pretty good fun addition. And he is pretty much one of the main villains of just not only Suicide Squad but as well as like the Flash.
Yep, that's true.
So he's there. Obviously Viola Davis is back as Amanda Waller. She
Amanda
also did
Waller,
a good
yep.
job. She just wasn't in it as much.
Yeah, I liked her character in the show. It's just sorry, in the movie, but it's just like, yeah, they just didn't really utilize her as much. Like I liked her interaction with like Bruce Wayne as Batman and stuff. Like that was pretty dope. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see her maybe have like a bigger role. But in the end, like Amanda Waller is always kind of like a side. Like she's a main character, but like she's also kind of like a side character in a sense, right? Like we're kind of more focused about what the Suicide Squad team are doing at this point in time, right? So yeah, I guess
Absolutely.
it's
But yeah,
good.
I think it's good to have the backbone, especially since it is Suicide Squad. You want her at least to be, I guess, because this is quite a big cast. You'd assume that a lot of them are actually going to die in this one, and you kind of
Mhm.
want those exploding collars to go off, or people die when they're in this mission. And obviously Margot Robbie is back as Harley Quinn. I think that was kind of maybe a pretty obvious bet and choice. I think just even having the character Harley Quinn in anything, I feel like sells quite a bit. People
Mhm.
just go out to kind of see that character in action. But yeah, essentially, there's a lot of no name. Like, there's not really no names. There's a lot of people I don't know personally, or I've seen them in like a movie or two.
Mhm.
So you've got like this guy called David Das McKellen. I don't know who that guy is. But then
Okay.
on the right of him, in the casting list, you've got people like John Cena, in the movie.
Yeah. Maybe he'll be invisible so we can't see him.
Yep. Invisible Man. And either way, and that's the thing. A lot of these people are going to be dying. Like I'm assuming Jai Courtney's going to survive. Nathan Fillion's in the movie, which
Yeah, I'm interested to see what character he plays.
because I swear to God, he was supposed to. He really wanted to be. There was that DC character he really wanted to play. It's not Beetle. It's the other guy. But I remember
Booster Gold.
Booster Gold. Yeah.
Oh, that's really random.
So then it's like he wanted to always play that. We've got all these other type of actors. You got Taika Waititi doing acting on this one as well.
Yeah, that's really weird as well. Like Taika Waititi, like that was a pretty random choice I found. Like out of all of it, it's just like, oh yeah, by the way, like Taika Waititi, the director of like the Thor movies, are gonna be in this film, and also like the guy who would have potentially replaced uh you know
Like
uh
James Gunn.
Gunn, yeah, if he hadn't have come back to do Guardians of the Galaxy, but yeah, I mean, not against it, but it is very interesting choice. Yeah, Joaquin Cosio, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, there's a lot of no
um
names I don't really know or I've heard of before. like
Hmm.
Mei Ling Ying. Like I don't know who any of these people are. Like obviously Joel Kinnaman is back as Rick Flag, which he's just a
Okay.
random generic soldier guy, whatever.
Yeah, Soldier Guy. Yeah.
Yeah, Peter Capaldi, I only know him because of what Doctor Who. He was
Doctor
like
Who. Yeah.
there was that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I think like all the other ones like have kind of well, yeah. There's also Idris Elba.
Idris Elba and
Who's
Michael Rooker. But yeah, like Idris Elba is not playing Deadshot apparently. Because yeah, so that was a big news thing I think we had like a few weeks back, where it was like, oh, he's playing Deadshot, and now they're just like he's not playing Deadshot, but he's in
I
it.
think he might be. I think he might play Bronze Tiger, who's like this. He's like one of the top like martial artists, and he's like this like cool black dude.
I think he
Who's
was in
kind
that
of like a
animated
good.
Suicide Squad movie as well, right?
I think that was Black Spider, which obviously doesn't doesn't lend much credence to the name, but like yeah, like it's essentially I think in the movie, like the old movie that was like Batman versus Suicide Squad or something like that. That I think is technically based in the Arkham game. It's like the Black Spider was actually Batman undercover or something like that. Like so some crazy shenanigan like that. But yeah, like Bronze Tiger, he's like not like a completely bad guy. He could be like that person who is essentially who Will Smith's character is in the first Suicide Squad movie. But I wonder like what that'll be, that'll mean for like the beginning of this film. Does it mean like in Suicide Squad 2, like Will Smith makes like a cameo in some capacity, or we see him wear his helmet, you know,
Mm,
and a distorted version, and then like he decides to not listen, and then his head blows up, right? You know,
yeah.
because we see at the end of I think Suicide Squad 1, he like goes off with his daughter, right? So maybe they're just going to end that particular story thread there and not follow it up. But I think it's a bit of a waste to like, okay, if you're never going to use Deadshot again, like you might as well kill him,
Yeah,
right?
because that was the whole conceit and point of Suicide Squad. It was like these characters, these villains that we've had to appear in a comic book like once or twice, and they're just random villains that we don't want to use anymore. It was kind of penned as an idea of like, let's get these guys like out of the DC universe kind of completely by actually officially killing them off. So all
Hmm.
these like random no names that no one really cares about, just kill them because
Yeah,
they're so random. And I feel like with this big cast, unlike the other previous Suicide Squad movie, where pretty much they only killed like two people.
mhm.
I feel like
They're
in
going to
this
kill off a
one,
lot more.
about like half of them are gonna die. Like
Well,
you could easily cast like a big name actor, like like I don't know, you could cast someone like Brad Pitt to appear like in a 5 minute scene in like a movie like this and just get killed off straight away.
well, I
Um,
mean, isn't that kind of what happened in like Deadpool,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
Deadpool,
he
but
got
that
his,
was kind of my
yeah.
example. Like you can do
Mm.
shit like that, especially with this movie. That you can get like Tom Cruise, for example, to do something in one of
Mm.
these movies and just get themselves killed because they're just gonna be playing a random actor, be on the set for one day, and that's kind of their whole thing. So I feel like a lot of these people, like I'm pretty sure, like Peter Capaldi, as far as I know, he's very like classical actor, like all about the theater stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if like he dies pretty much,
Yeah, some
in this movie.
capacity.
There's a lot of people like I'm assuming are gonna die.
Looking looking at the kind of IMDb cast and crew, they have John Cena playing a character called Peacemaker, and I just looked him up, and he's from like a Charleston comic, where like kind of all the like kind of Watchmen characters are kind of somewhat based off, right? So I can imagine him being killed. You have David uh, Dast Melchain. He's playing Polka Dot Man, which is a bit of a meme. So I can imagine like which is just a dude who wears like this polka dot suit, right? But I can imagine that being the meme, like just when you think like, oh, this guy's gonna die because he's obviously covered in polka dots, but because of the way that James Gunn will do the movie, like he's gonna be one of the guys who survives to the very end or
Like
something.
some
Uh,
stupid thing like that. Yeah.
Steve Agee is playing King Shark, and Daniela Melchior is playing Ratcatcher. So that's all the stuff that you have confirmed on the IMDb list. Whether we'll find out a little bit more about exactly what characters the others will get, we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, Suicide Squad seems interesting. I hope that they don't screw it up and keep the story a little bit more grounded and not fighting Cara Delevingne, whatever her name
Yeah.
is.
Well, that's the thing. I think that was the really hard sell. I think it was just these people with not really superpowers taking up things with superpowers. Like I feel like this is like Task Force X slash Suicide Squad really should be like underground level, like dealing with gangsters or whatever it may be. Kind
Yeah,
of
like
doing that.
domestic terrorists or something like that.
Yeah, and it's just like, if they die, they die. And that's the whole point of it. It's really cool to have something like King Shark, for example, being a part of this film and things like that. So it's just like, either way, I'm pretty excited for it. As I mentioned many times before, Suicide Squad, in general, like that's my favorite kind of like IP comic book thing. I just like the concept and the idea, and maybe it's been a little bit trivialized now, but especially like because I never thought I would get a Suicide Squad movie, and it's obvious because the new comic books had Harley Quinn in it, and that's how we got it. But either way, I'm happy that more people know about Suicide Squad because it was just one of those obscure things that I'd tell people, and they had no idea what the hell these damn comic books were. So I'm glad that it's at least getting a second movie.
Hmm.
In
Well,
that time.
hopefully, it'll be it'll have a better like kind of public image, rather than, hey, we're gonna have a weird Joker in this film who isn't gonna
Yeah, no Jared
gonna be
Leto in
used
sight.
everywhere.
No Jared Leto in sight.
Yeah, surprising absolutely nobody. I wouldn't blame him ever like wanting to come back to a DC property ever again. Poor kid.
Poor
Um,
kid.
yeah. But speaking of DC properties, uh, I finally came around and binge watched Swamp Thing over like the past like week or so. And yeah, I think it's probably a good time to do the review of it because you watched it a while ago, yeah, Don?
Yes, I did watch it a while ago. And yeah, because I think obviously after the first episode aired, it had the whole controversy of it's pretty much been cancelled and it's going to be a one
Mm.
season thing. Um, and it's obviously not even just because of the quality of the show, but it was rather just money circulating and who gets what. Um, and
It's so weird. Like I don't get exactly because even DC came out and said like, oh, that's not the case, and obviously they're gonna say no, that's obviously not the case. Like they're gonna obviously kind of cover themselves, but it is quite a shame since they did kind of set up a lot of interesting things about this show, and I think even they said they had plans of having this series kind of go for at least 3 seasons, and then it might have expanded into like a Justice League Dark or something like that with him on the team.
yeah, it does
So
have really cool, interesting concepts in the show. Because yeah, they think because I think you've read the comic and I really haven't really, but didn't they set up
something.
something? Yeah. Didn't they set up something like Animal Man in this or something like that? There was another guy, right?
They didn't set up Animal Man, but I will hold on. Let's talk about
Yeah,
the
the show.
actual show first and foremost, right? I like basically the show is about the main character. I'd say is Abby Arcane.
Yeah, she is the
So
main character.
she's yeah, like you do have like Alec Holland who is Swamp Thing, but he is the main character too. But I think a lot of this story is like kind of setting him up, whereas you're kind of dealing with Abby Arcane, who is essentially a CDC doctor, who gets sent to this like town of Mirai, I think is how it's pronounced, in Louisiana. So it's like all cool, like it's got like a swamp, and like they all live in the bayou and stuff, and they go, they have like the hovercrafts to kind, not hovercraft, like they have boats. But I know those areas do use hovercrafts as well. But
It's those things that traverse lakes and swamps basically.
yeah. But like, yeah, in the show they use boats, but like, yeah, in order to kind of navigate and go to place, like, it's this kind of got a really cool feel, that's very kind of unique to that setting. And basically in this town, like everybody starts to develop this kind of weird disease where they're either like coughing up like plant parts, or they obviously don't really know like what's going on initially. But the first episode, we're kind of dealing with Abby kind of not knowing what she's doing, and she kind of runs into this doctor, or scientist, known as Alec Holland. Now, Holland was was hired by, one of the big moguls who like kind of is like a big deal in the town, right? Like I guess that's Avery Sunderland. Sunderland, yeah.
And he basically controls the town. He has the
Yeah, more
wealth.
or less. Yeah, he has like a lot of like pull and like social respect. And he hires Alec to figure out like what's going on and what's happening. And they find these like kind of mutagenic chemicals in the swamp. And as Alec was trying to kind of come back from one of his I guess adventures trying to figure out, he gets shot and killed in this massive explosion, and supposedly the chemicals kind of doused him, and he became this like creature made out of like grass, well, not grass, like plants and vines and whatnot.
What, Nature Earth, more or less.
Yeah, and
Nature Earth
yeah,
personified.
yeah, in a sense. And so essentially, like, Abby eventually kind of finds out, and we basically try to figure out, like, what's what caused this, you know, why are all these people getting sick? Where did all these chemicals come from? And yeah, it's basically just kind of finding out this greater mystery, which, by the way, makes it an extra bigger disappointment that they aren't going to explore it, because I think they set up a lot of really cool things.
Yeah, they
Um,
set up a lot of, I guess, backstory when it comes to like it does seem like because especially this season and what it showed is like obviously it focuses on the town, and it's like this small
mhm,
town, all that type of stuff. It's really good atmosphere, but it hints on these things that there's so much more of this world to explore,
mhm.
and characters to meet, and it is kind of a shame that they like there is a lot of set up in this show, and it's not even just about that, but as well as things of Alec coming in terms with him being, I guess, like existent or not really existent. There's many parts of this show where he doesn't know if he's a sentient being, or does he just have the
It-
memories and it's someone else's
yeah,
life that he's living.
exactly. Yeah, and yeah, so he's getting a lot of like, I guess he's feeling very dysphoric about, exactly where his place is in the world. And then, at the same time, Abby is kind of dealing with, trying to figure out what's going on, trying to cure people, seeing all these creepy stuff happening. Like, in one episode, there's like this ancient disease that starts infecting the town. And she has to kind of work with Alec to try and like, suppress it. But then at the same time, she kind of faces her own demons. Like she's like feels responsible for the death of her best friend that kind of made her recluse in the town and people like hating her. Um, we also had like I think it's like the sheriff and the sheriff's son, like the deputy. I think he's a deputy. He might not be actually. But yeah, it's like their relationships with her, and just how this town like kind of connects together. Because again, this is like a small kind of small town in Louisiana, so to speak. So everybody kind of knows each other. So it has that kind of homely feel.
and
One
and
thing
and I'm
that
assuming that's where all the money got into. It's to build
yeah,
the swamp in the town.
hmm one thing that I because they set up like Shauna, and you see her kind of being undead, and that's kind of setting up the concept of the rot, which is what also Alec kind of talks about. There's something in this town that's like infecting it or being really bad, and in the Swamp Thing universe, like there's like a few different kind of like uh I guess I think they're like elemental planes of existence, so to speak, right? Like, or like kind of entities. Like there's the green that essentially is like all plant life kind of working together for like a goal. There's like the red, which is like, red for blood. So that's all like, all the animals and stuff. The rot is basically like, the like death or like undeath or undead things, which doesn't make like, I think that's the thing that in the show you kind of see it as being like, oh, like it's these dead things coming back to life, but in the comic they kind of explain it, and obviously Swamp Thing kind of understands it as being like, it doesn't actually hate life, this kind of elemental component like kind of needs life in order to exist.
Mm.
There's also the clear. I think that's like water, so all like water creatures. I guess like maybe Aquaman might be like the avatar um of water or the clear, but I'm actually not too sure. I never really saw anything too much into it. I think like in Injustice Gods Among Us 2, or Injustice 2, there's a bit of like a conversation between Poison Ivy and Swamp Thing because they're both avatars of like plants, and Poison Ivy, like she kind of became like like a soft avatar. She's never really like an avatar for the green, but she often like says like, oh well, the green, works for is gonna needs a new hero kind of thing. So and also because Harley Quinn's more of like a she kind of hates humanity, so she's very pro plant, whereas like something kind of has his humanity still. And you kind of see a lot of that happening in this show. And along with like, other kind of classic characters, you also have Madame Xanadu, who is like the blind fortune teller. She's African American in this show. And I think that kind of works well within like the show's
Yeah,
scope.
with its theming and its locations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Because
it is really interesting because like Madame Xanadu is like obviously like I guess comic book wise, it's only really seen in like Justice League Dark and things like that. And there was rumors,
yeah, like Constantine, like
yeah,
like all those kind of
there was rumors that like there was gonna be another Constantine. Sure, I don't know if they're gonna still try to do it, but they're gonna like reboot it almost. And I feel like that would have probably because there've also been talks for a very long time for a Justice League Dark TV show or something along those lines, and I think maybe this could have started and like just talking in general about Swamp Thing, I got a feeling maybe he'll return at some point in the DC like universe. Just that he won't have his own show. He'd be
maybe
like
they
the
might
Hulk
have to do.
almost.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Maybe they'll have to do something like the Hulk, where like, oh, maybe they can't do Swamp Thing, but they'll have him in like Titans or something like that, or they'll have him in this, and then or like in what you said, like Justice League Dark, and because uh you know uh, they didn't resolve the plot of Swamp Thing, everybody in Justice League Dark, they work together with Swamp Thing to end like the rot or whatever the big bad is in that particular season, and that's season one. And I can see that happening. That seems like a pretty good way to kind of resolve like two seasons, or like like two plot points within one season of a show. And then also kind of does give like some of the characters like the ability to kind of come back and at least play supporting roles, because I actually really liked Abby Arcane, played by Crystal Reed, because yeah, like she like I think I think a lot of the times, like I've been saying it quite a lot on the podcast, that like a lot of these shows that I've been watching, that maybe they might have like a female protagonist and they're just like a Mary Sue or something like that, right? Abby Arcane is definitely not that kind of character. She does things, she kind of goes into a situation being quite confident, especially if it's like related to like medicine and stuff. But a lot of this show kind of involves her kind of trying to understand that, hey, maybe things aren't all can't be explained by science, and that's where she kind of develops like a bond with Alec Holland slash Swamp Thing in trying to learn a little bit more about like the scope of exactly what is happening, and that kind of requires her to kind of understand like, yeah, maybe I'm not like a complete know-it-all. Like there's one scene where like she goes to try and get a sample, and she gets like gravely injured, and that just shows like she isn't successful at everything she does, and that's not something that you usually would get out of something like a Rey from Star Wars, or in any other kind of like show that I've been
any other show,
recently.
don't worry, I get it. It does feel like it is filmed in such a different way to like modern, I guess, sensibilities and look as well. Like it's got a really good atmosphere. The lighting is like outstanding in this. It's really good and creepy. Even something to even touch on. This show is very brutal. Like how it shows its violence. Like there's some of the times when I was watching this, I'm like, oh man, like this is
oh, like the hook scene.
Yeah, there's like the hook scene. I do remember there's like I think there was a few limbs being cut off and stuff like that, or like
yep.
or like there's bits about the tree branches, like big splinters almost. I'm like, yeah, like
oh yeah, that's right, when they get splinters and stuff. Yeah,
like this show is just like it has a tone and atmosphere that it pretty much is a horror thing almost, with a bunch of other stuff on the side.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. It does have the horror vibes, and that's very much in line with like kind of the original kind of Swamp Thing work, which I'm not completely familiar with, but I know that it's the like back when it was under the Vertigo Comics line, that kind of Swamp Thing was much more kind of adult oriented, and stuff like that. The other thing that kind of there was a movie that I said was like overrated. Where like it was like a while ago. It's like it's like these four scientist women go into like this
Oh,
phenomena.
Annihilation.
Annihilation. In the first episode, there's like a man who's like completely turned into like a tree man, and it kind of reminded me of like some of the scenes in Annihilation, like plants kind of evolving and taking over kind of stuff. And that's kind of what this is. Kind of like that really bad M. Night Shyamalan film, where all the trees release poisons that like
Oh, it was like
make people
the
want to kill
happening. Was that what it was? That
the happening. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then the trees released the I don't know, some kind of poison or something that made people suicidal, and it was really bad. Whereas like in this, it has the same concept about like the green fighting back because like there's too much human consumption and corruption, and so it fights back, but it's done in a much more direct way. It's like plants fighting people or like killing people or something
it
like that.
encompasses like I guess a personality almost, or like a living thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, instead of just a
Yeah,
tree
so
actually killing you.
yeah, yeah. So like Abby Arcane, excellent character, really well written, has a very very good character arc. It's just a shame that we won't see more of her anytime soon. Hopefully, fingers crossed, hopefully like DC kind of does end up making some kind of thing that involves at least a majority of the people from this cast because they're pretty interesting. Uh, Alec Holland as Swamp Thing. I think they're played by two different people. So you have Andy Bean and Derek Mears.
I'm assuming
And yeah,
one's in like the makeup and outfit, and the other guy is just like,
yeah,
yeah,
that's correct.
because there's no way they're
Um,
just like, yeah, no.
yeah, yeah. So like, so Mears, it performs Swamp Thing, in the physical costume, and voices him as well. Uh, and I guess that kind of lends more to the credence about like him kind of, is he really Swamp Thing? Is it not? Because there's a really great scene where it's like, yeah, Alec Holland is talking to Swamp Thing, and it's like, hey, you figured it out. Maybe you're not me, but it doesn't matter, kind of thing. Or maybe it is. I don't know. Just watch it. It's really good. Um, who else? Oh, I actually was a big fan of Jason Woodrow, who was the kind of like um, you know, uh, kind of eccentric biogeneticist, as they called him. And he's kind of also sent to kind of figure out what's going on in the town, but he's kind of, sent in by Sunderland after like the death of Alec Holland. So, and he's kind of a more like detached character, very like scientific and very like cold and methodical. And so, I kind of don't like what happened to his character in the end because I think it kind of went very much out of place of what a quote unquote scientist would do, but I kind of get why they had to take his character down a different
But that's the thing.
down a certain
He
direction.
acted the part really beautifully. Like I
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
he,
Everything prior to that, very, very excellent.
because I'm just like, yeah, man, this character has like he's like eccentric. He has like quirks to him that like I can feel
Mhm.
like if this show did last long, he would be like one of these characters. Or you just be like,
Yeah,
yeah, this is
yeah,
really
because
awesome.
he is a villain for Swamp Thing in the comics as well. And
But
then
yeah, aside
there's
from
also
that, there's like I forgot her name, but the female police officer.
yeah, I think she's like Sheriff Cable.
Mm. And
Yeah,
I do remember. Yeah, I feel like she
And
had
her
a
and it's
whole
like her
arc.
son Matt. Yeah, because her and her son Matt, because there's like this kind of background stuff happening with like them and like Avery Sunderland and also like Sunderland's wife Maria. There's this whole kind of stuff going on there. I wasn't too interested in that, but like I get why it was there because you kind of show a little bit more about like what these characters are like. In the comics, from because I did a bit of research on it, in the comics, Matt Cable and Abby Arcane like were married, and like Swamp Thing was like Abby's like second husband, so to speak.
Mm.
So it's like they kind of went with the okay, we're just having him as like a secondary love interest or something like that in this show. Well, not anymore, of course, but
That's the
the
thing.
other
Like, what in general? What do you feel about the show? Because I really enjoyed my
well
time with yeah, Swamp Thing.
Well, I was gonna just add like one additional thing. So they also kind of have like a semi origin for the Blue Devil, who is a character from like that I've only recently been introduced to through Justice League Dark, like as of the 2018 comic book series. Because I never heard of this character, the Blue Devil. I'm like, okay, cool. Like he just made a deal with the devil and he's blue. But yeah, like it's cool to kind of see his origin, trying to see like what the go is. And the other thing is, the guy in the hat who kind of talks to him and then talks to Swamp Thing.
Yeah, the random guy
His
and
Yeah,
what
yeah,
his deal is all about.
yeah. He's supposed to be the Phantom Stranger
Ah,
from the DC comics. So I'm very much like like I didn't get it at first until like I kind of like, oh, okay, that kind of makes a lot more sense. Like because the Phantom Stranger, essentially, the Phantom Stranger is a character in the DC universe who's like he's kind of like this paranormal um like being who's uh he essentially is like he's sinned and he's kind of forever um you know like sent to kind of right his wrongs or right the wrongs of people. And there's been like various different origins of exactly who he is. But some people like in DC, like they said like, oh, he's like the guy who like betrayed like Jesus, right?
mm-hmm.
I forget his name. Um,
Judas.
Judas. He's like Judas, like having to like pay for his crime of like betraying the Son of God, right? But then there's like heaps of other kind of origins, and also like I think like Phantom Stranger I think used to be in the Vertigo lineup until they were kind of absorbed into like the DC universe. But yeah, he's one of those kind of big boss like kind of entities, and he played a pretty big significant role in the like I think the first two arcs in New 52, along with the Question and Pandora. But yeah, so that's who that character was. He's usually portrayed as like a tall, skinny dude like tall, like muscular, like mystery dude whose face you don't see. Whereas like in the show is like he's like kind of like this like nice like pudgy guy. But like I liked it because it made a lot of sense. Like once I'm like, okay, this is why he's like talking to Alec Holland, and then he's also interacting with the Blue Devil. So it is
Yeah,
really
because I
cool
didn't
that
get
they're
it at all. I'm like, what is this setup with this dude? Like, what's his deal? But yeah.
Yeah. So essentially he's like kind of setting like the course to kind of like, have things like be better for like the in world of the DC universe and influence it like without being able to directly influence it. Because even like, the Blue Devil says like, oh, why don't you go save like, certain characters, and he's like, hey, I can't do anything, but you can. And that's the reason why, because he doesn't have like an earthly form, so to speak, even though he technically does. But anyway, so besides the point. What did I think of Swamp Thing? I think it's really good, and it's actually a very big shame that it's not getting a season 2, because I would have loved to see them kind of maybe do like a bit of an expansion. Like it could have been like, maybe next season they're dealing with all that, and maybe like Animal Man might come into it, and maybe he has to like work with Animal Man. Plants and animals, they hate each other, boo, and then they fight, and then hey, you know what, we have to work together against the rot, and then then that kind of escalates even further in some capacity. Like yeah, like I think
Yeah,
it
because
could
that's
have.
the thing. I think it has a really good setup
Yeah.
of like what it could have been and like seasons to come almost. Because it sets up a lot of new characters really well, and very much like future wise, there could have been a lot what they could have done. But who knows? Like the DC universe, I guess they haven't really said anything past like the Stargirl TV show really. Um,
Mm.
so
And
at some point, after Titans is all done, and the Harley Quinn cartoon's all done. I know Doom Patrol 2 is going to happen, but after that, they really haven't announced anything since then. So I got a feeling they'll do, I don't know, something with the character at least, because I feel like they've got really good world building in this show, and atmosphere is really amazing. And I just wish there was more of this, but who knows what there possibly is in the future with this I guess show, I guess.
yeah, I guess fingers crossed it'll go somewhere that will be positive for like DC going forward. But if it doesn't, like I'm not usually the one who says I'm glad it exists, but that's usually your line. But I'm glad this show, I'm glad this particular show exists, because I think it definitely, because the thing is it doesn't necessarily end on a cliffhanger per se. They kind of like, Abby, Arcane, and Swamp Thing are like, hey, let's figure it out together, what's going on. And like you can just assume that like they go on their merry adventures, and this could just be like the origin of this particular cast of characters. But yeah, it is a shame that not we don't get to see everything in fruition. But as you said, like we do have Titan season 2 playing, which I'm kind of liking so far. There's been some set leaks, not set leaks, but like costume leaks of Nightwing, and what that will look like. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing them kind of showing more about what DC has available, because obviously it's going to be compared to the Marvel stuff eventually when that all comes out. So like for now, like DC's doing an
Yeah,
excellent job
right
in
now,
the
basically
TV
DC
department.
has been owning TV for years, more or less. Aside from like something like Daredevil, and Punisher, I feel like even DC is
And
just
Jessica Jones season 1, that's it.
yeah,
Like other
and
than
it's
that,
kind of like
I didn't even I didn't even bother watching um Punisher season 2, because like now that it's like kind of basically been confirmed that like all those shows are non-canon to like the Marvel universe, I just have no interest in ever watching anything to do with them. It's like yeah, like if I'd ever have to recommend it, it'd just be like watch Daredevil season 1, watch Daredevil season 3, watch Punisher season 1, watch Jessica Jones season 1, and try and ignore the ending.
yeah, pretty much. And I feel like like DC, they've got there's gonna be a war because a lot of the Marvel stuff, obviously they've announced a lot of different TV shows, and I do wonder what the feeling and look of them are. I guess in the future, and they're definitely not going to be Swamp Thing. I know that for a fact because all of them are at least going to be PG rated. They're not going to have the same gore or anything as Swamp Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but essentially, that is Swamp Thing. But who knows what's going to happen in the future with the DC stuff. Another thing which I have no idea if it's going to be a potential sequel at all or whatever it may be. It could just be a one-off, and it's really interesting. Is a new TV show by Amazon called Undone. This is created by the guy who did BoJack Horseman. This is kind of his first like one of his like things after BoJack, because like BoJack's still going. I think pretty much a lot of people like it. I like it. I know that you
I
like
like
it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of BoJack's the kind of show that like what you're gonna get out of it. It's not gonna be too different, but it does has some pretty interesting set pieces.
yeah, and I feel like he brings that pretty much to this show called Undone, and it kind of follows this girl called Alma, where she's very dysfunctional. You know, she has a boyfriend, but doesn't want to be like fully in a relationship with him. She's pretty much the outcast of the family. So some stuff happens, and she gets in a car accident. And when she does wake up,
Right.
she gets in a car accident, and she nearly dies. But she wakes up, and she can see her dad, who died when she was a kid. And essentially, it's kind of, she doesn't know if these are delusions or this is real. And essentially, it's her talking to his dad, explaining that she has these kind of powers almost. She's in touch with this, I guess, psychedelic world where she can go back and forth in time almost, and kind of rip the fabric of space. And essentially, what it is the dad asks her to figure out who killed him, because it wasn't an accident. So the dad's trying to coach her to use her powers to kind of go back in time to figure out how he died and why he died. As well as I guess Alma, dealing with her relationship problems, as well as problems with her family, because she does have an older sister who's getting married. She's trying to not stuff that up with her. She's got a mom who's very worrying and things like that. So there's a lot of that stuff going on, as well as trying to unravel the mystery of what happened to her dad. And that's a relatively simple premise. However, with the whole point of going back and forth in time and kind of jumping in and out of scenes, it is, I guess, it's very psychedelic in the way it presents itself. Even with its look, it is shot in live action. However, it's rotoscoped, and obviously, if you don't know what rotoscoping is, it's kind of cartoon artists, they kind of draw and sketch kind of over the film. So it does give it. It looks like humans, but they're cartoons. So it's like very accurate though. I think if you remember back at the old Disney films like Cinderella or Snow White, they do have a certain animation style look to them. They look kind of real. Like there's little small touches in the way they move. That's basically how they rotoscope stuff. And this show has 8 episodes, and they're half an hour each. So you can get through an afternoon like I did. And I think it's a really good, unique, interesting show. There's really nothing like it out there. Just the premise itself of, I guess, you can go back in time, go forth in time, and and it's kind of going into you basically have, the way they explain it is you have kind of 2 different planes. You've got the psychedelic side of plane, and then you've got the real life side of plane. So it's kind of like Neo in the Matrix, if it could go back and forth of the red pill and the blue pill, like back and forth. And it's kind of her trying to handle that, because there's been times where, for example, she works at a kid's nursery where she'll just randomly get into one scene where she's like completely naked for some reason, where she works, but her body is basically in autopilot mode doing all those things, and then when she goes into kind of like the psychedelic world, she's doing something else. So there's a lot of kind of back and forth, and that's why I guess there's a lot of drama between her and her sister, especially with the wedding and everything like that. I feel like that they set that up pretty well. But yeah, I think it's a amazing, interesting concept that it does hint at a season 2, but it very much could. This could be a one-off thing, and it could work really well. Because there are entanglements of is she going crazy from the car accident, or is she legit being serious? And there's a lot of I guess that going on. And kind of family issues and things like that. And, like really good cast. They got Rosa Salazar, who is obviously our waifu, Alita, Battle Angel. That's her. Okay. Yeah, they got her. And the only one I think what I don't do is Bob Odenkirk, who does Saul Goodman in Breaking Bad. Really good. He's the dad. I guess he's like a scientist, and he died, and he's trying to figure out is there a conspiracy to kill him for his research. So there was a lot of, I guess, that in the show. But either way, I really enjoyed the show. You can get it done in an afternoon, and I highly recommend it because it is very original, very different, and it's definitely something that you will not see pretty much nearly any other TV show. So I do highly recommend Undone, because it even just when I was watching it, people would walk by and be very weirdly interested because it looks so unique. In the way it could have presented stuff. So I do highly recommend the show.
Like it definitely does sound like a this is the thing that I kind of like with what Amazon's doing, right? They're kind of kickstarting a lot of these really interesting projects. We can't talk enough about The Boys, right?
Yeah, The Boys, or even last week we talked about Carnival Row.
Yeah, you talked about Carnival Row. So it's very interesting. And how long is each episode, did you say?
They're about half an hour each, and there's 8 episodes. So it's like a 2.5 hour show, and it pretty much does feel like more like a movie, and they've kind of condensed it almost. It has its like start, middle, and end, and it does it so well where there is no fluff. It kind of reminds me earlier on in this year, we had a show on Netflix called Russian Doll, where a girl kind of gets stuck in a time loop. She's trying to figure out what's going on. It kind of reminds me of that, but obviously with this one, it does have a little bit more of a psychedelic edge to it, as well as kind of mental issue type of thing, because the Rosa character very much, even before her accident, is very unstable. She pretty much is a really screwed up person. She tried to commit suicide, and there's a lot of different stuff like that in the show. So a lot of people obviously think she's she's making all this stuff up and things like that. So I feel like it's kind of the boy who cried wolf situation. Yeah, so I do recommend the show.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of shows that are kind of drama filled and has a mystery, you've recently finished watching 13 Reasons Why.
Yes, I have, and I can give you a reason of 13 reasons why this season sucks.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I don't have it written on me, but I can just say, this season is not what I think the show stands for, or it just feels very different. Essentially, this season is off the previous season, which is season 2, which kind of ends more or less in a cliffhanger, where one of the students, was his name's Tyler, was about to shoot up a school, and they kind of ended it at that point, and obviously he get talked out of it, and that had I think the first episode kind of deals with that drama, and then it skips directly into the kind of this murder mystery, because one of the main points of contention from the first and half of the second season is I guess the bully character, Bryce, he gets killed, and it's kind of a mystery of who killed Bryce, and it's kind of this it's kind of very Nancy Drew, very mystery-ish, and I like that premise. However, the way they do a lot of this stuff is, I don't know, I don't like the delivery of. For example, they introduced one of the new characters that I just don't like. It's very, I don't remember her name.
Is that Arnie?
Arnie, yes. Because essentially the season opens with her talking to the audience. Usually you would get someone like a Bryce or Hannah Baker doing that, and then you get this new character Arnie coming in. And I feel like that's one of the main problems of this season, is that with already a big bunch of cast already in this season, and all the characters and all what they're dealing with, Arnie comes in, and I guess she's in control of the season, and kind of the unrelatable narrator, and I just don't like the way it's framed almost.
Yeah, because exactly. I think that's something that I forgot to kind of add during my particular review of 13 Reasons Why last week or whatever, was that she is supposed to be like an unreliable narrator, much like Hannah Baker during season 1. Unfortunately, they killed Hannah Baker in the first season, which kind of throws off the plot of the whole point of 13 Reasons Why. So they have to have like a replacement, another kind of eccentric girl. So they just basically like have another Hannah Baker, but she's just like loved by everyone. She just like injects herself into everybody's life. Really
and she
quickly.
Fits in so damn well,
all of a sudden,
all of a sudden, everyone, like, because you would think and that's like, this is one of those things where it doesn't make any sense, because you would think the new girl, she wouldn't be like, especially when you reveal later on in the season with a lot of stuff what happens, you wouldn't think that this random new girl would be getting all this information and be a part of this group, like so tightly knit almost, of like what happened. And like you don't really buy it, because at the last few episodes they talk about like how close this group is, and they'll do anything to cover up things, and to all protect themselves, and then all of a sudden she's there knowing all that stuff, even though she was like literally a brand new character.
It definitely does seem out of place. I guess what did you like from this season, if there is anything?
I think what I did like is, and that's the thing, I think the main reason why I think a lot of people are pissed off a little bit more in this season as well, is that they do a lot of interesting things that I guess kind of retcon a lot of stuff that kind of happened previously. I feel like in particular, obviously the main point of contention is Bryce Walker character. Especially in the first season, you kind of saw him as obviously an asshole guy, and kind of got what it was coming to him and things like that. And you kind of want to get justice. In the second season, they kind of reveal a little bit more about him and who he is, and kind of the problems that he has. And obviously, I think in this third season, what they've tried to do is obviously humanize him in such a way where, people deserve forgiveness. There can be redemption. There can be ways out of this cycle, I guess. And but I think we should just go full spoilers at this point, because we've already kind of done a review. And kind of I guess what it would like where I thought the show was going to go is like, obviously he redeemed himself, and everything would have been okay. But the thing is, he basically gets killed by one of the characters, the Alex guy, who basically in after he tried to commit suicide, he was basically he's a non-existent character in the group. He just needed something to do now, and he gets killed, and it's covered up from the rest of the group. And what I thought, and I felt like kind of a betrayal for the Bryce character almost, where you build him up in such a way where it's like, he's trying to forgive himself, trying to do all these things, and then the guy who's supposed to be the nice guy is now turned evil, and now like the character, the dynamics changed,
way, right? I think this is the thing. I don't think they did like some kind of necessarily betrayal to Bryce, but I think the problem was it's like you spent all this time trying to make him a good person, um, but then you get them to kill him. It kind of defeats all this character development you were doing.
Mm,
Because it's like it's much more easier for people to kind of be like, oh hey, bad guy gets killed, and that is a good thing, right? Because he was bad. But then it's like you almost set it up so that you think that the other people were assholes. Even though like in the end like Bryce was like ready to kind of like ruin I forget the Asian guy's name, the captain of the football team. Like he was ready to like ruin that guy's life and all that kind of stuff. So it kind of in the end showed that like he didn't change, but I think they needed more moments. Bryce kind of trying to change, but then like in the end he hadn't changed. Whereas like all the stuff that was happening that particular night where he got like bashed up and stuff, like it's kind of like it's understandable in a way why he got to that point.
mm,
I just kind of saw that like a lot of this season was just kind of retconning a lot of things that happen in the show. Like, for example, Justin and I think Claire, right? They like break up during season one, um, because obviously Justin like allowed Bryce to like sexually assault her, um, and but like and then that's where she ends up with another character who's kind of like this like he's like a I don't know what to really describe him, like a nerdy, not nerdy, like a loner type, and it's supposed to be like okay she kind of like goes from like dating like a jock to like someone who's like more like a regular guy, but I kind of feel like they kind of reintroduced Claire and Justin getting back together because that's like the or what the audience wants kind of thing, if that makes sense.
yeah, it's like we want those like the shipping crowd. They're just like
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
we're gonna make him do that. And yeah, I did feel a lot of that, especially as I mentioned before. I guess the main perpetrator is the Alex guy.
Alex, that's his name. Yeah, because Claire gets back. Claire and Alex break up, and then she goes back to Justin, and so obviously Alex is just like, "What the fuck," you know?
And then basically it's like, okay, I'm gonna just kill Bryce because everything that's gone wrong in my life is your fault.
Oh well, there's that, but then it's also like he understands that like hey like I get why he does it as well. Like that's the thing, you can kind of understand like how things happened the way it did. I just don't think that the way they reacted after it happens is realistic. Like with all the stuff with Tyler, yes you can understand like Tyler wanting to redeem himself and all that, but what I don't believe is everybody kept quiet about this potential school shooter. That's the kind of bizarre
Well,
aspect, and it's the same with this. It's
well,
like
that's the thing I was saying with I guess the moral side of things because it's like I felt like oh yeah this group of people sees the best side of people and it's kind of almost for like with Tyler they're just like part of the season was like we don't know if he's gonna shoot the school again or trigger off again, but we believe the best in people and we believe people can change and kind of cope. And then I guess like they don't do the thing with the Bryce guy, almost where it's like they do it with Tyler, but then when it comes to Bryce, they're just like, yeah, nah, he can't be redeemed. So I feel like there's almost like a disingenuous thing, almost where, and that's where I come from with this third season, almost where it's like coming into the fourth season, a lot of these characters, in a sense, like they did cover up a damn murder. So a lot of these characters do need to kind of get punished for it almost, but I don't see it happening. Being like you give special
well,
privileges for people like you help people like Tyler, but with Bryce, we can cover up that murder because why not? There's a lot of that story going on where it's like a lot of these people who covered it up and things like that should get I guess punished for it almost, or something should
yeah.
be revealed. And that's the thing. I don't know if they're
Well,
going
I
to try
mean,
to
I
blame it
think
on one particular person or the whole
well,
group.
but I think that's the point of what's gonna more or less happen next season, or at least they're setting it up because they find the guns that were dumped in the river, and that's meant to set up like, hey, yeah, it's gonna kickstart like bad stuff happening next season where it's like, hey, like all these guns belongs to someone. Hey, we checked like the I guess the not like the license not license number but like gun number or whatever, and it was purchased by Tyler somehow. So yeah, it's like one of those things where I think that's probably what's going to happen, and then they're going to have to deal with like the aftermath of that, and then yeah, maybe they find out like oh like they killed Bryce, and yeah, it's just gonna escalate. So this is the problem. Like the show was only really good for season one, and that's all you need to. That's what I feel, at least. I'm not sure if I can watch another season of this show.
Well, that's the thing. I think it ends after the next season, the fourth season. I feel like that's why, at this point, when there's one more
You're
season left,
committed.
yeah. But it's not even just committed. But I feel like it ended in such a way. Like I at least want to know that like they didn't get away with it almost, and it kind of there's a lot of like intertwining things going on, with the Bryce and like his relationship with his mom and his dad versus even like Clay as well. He gets a little bit more of that where it's like he just seems to be like, oh yeah, well everywhere almost. So I know there's a lot of cast, and some of them they don't know what they want to do with the characters. For example, I think the dentist guy, the Latino mechanic, he didn't really have much to do in this season.
Yeah, Tony.
So they're just like,
Yeah.
just do stuff. So there's a lot of kind of stuff that they can probably cut and things like that. But I don't know. I feel like, yeah, the first season had kind of a point. And I guess this show could have gone in such a way where if it wanted to help people, like it says it does, sometimes when it kind of informs people about issues and whatever it may be, it could have done it in such a way where it's kind of like this season's going to kind of focus on something else and something else. And it kind of doesn't really do that. So I thought it was going to go that way, but yeah, it's very much turned into something that's a little bit more, instead of being a realistic thing about like we're going to show you the real truths of something, it's more like heightened reality now.
Yeah, I think that's correct. It is definitely getting to that point where they're just trying to be like a 90210, something like that teenage drama shit. So I don't know. I guess you watch like Euphoria, for example, right? Like in terms
Yes.
of like, would you say like certain reasons why is more similar to something like that now?
Yeah, I feel so, because I feel like that, but at the same time, I guess it doesn't really display it as that way. It's not really as an informative thing of like, hey, we're gonna help you or anything like that. But it does. I think it shows characters who are, yes, a lot more grounded, and it gives it a lot more realistic, I guess, takes on things, rather than something like 13 Reasons Why, where it is very much like, you know. It's there for the entertainment factor, I guess, and I feel like Euphoria does have a certain grittiness to it, the way it shows and the characters act, I guess. So I feel like, yeah, at 13 Reason Why, it's kind of like its shock value was in the first season of showing, I guess, the graphic. There's a lot of graphic scenes in it, but I feel like I think after the certain backlash, they kind of moved away from it almost, and kind of played it kind of semi-safe in such a way where, instead of talking about the issues that people may have, they've I guess Hollywoodized it, I guess. But I either way, this season, yeah, it really wasn't that interesting or entertaining, aside from the certain things here and there. But I didn't like the new character, especially talking to the audience about certain things, and yeah, I don't know how she fits in and everything, but yeah, she just kind of got squeezed in there. But I'm here for the fourth season, I guess.
Yeah, well, I'll have to see moving forward whether I'll watch it. Probably will. Let's face it.
Yeah, one more season and it's done.
Speaking of media with teenage girls in it, I recently was playing a pretty cool game called River City Girls. It's essentially a kind of like a spin-off game from the old game River City.
There's
I
River
think
City Ransom, and I know there was like a spin-off, right?
Yeah, I think it's River City Ransom is what the game is technically a spin-off sequel about. Now River City Ransom is like a beat 'em up game where essentially the two characters, which I believe is supposed to be I think Kunio and Ricky, are trying to save their girlfriends now, who have been kidnapped. In River City Girls, you're essentially playing the girlfriends who are now out to try and save their boyfriends who've been kidnapped. And so it's kind of like a role reversal. It kind of reminds me of like a game called Super Princess Peach that came out for the Nintendo DS, which is essentially had you playing as Princess Peach, going to try and save Mario. It's a classic kind of the princess saving the hero kind of thing, right? But in River City Girls, it's like a very, very, it's a classic kind of beat 'em up. Kind of like, if you liked Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, the I think Turtle Time Travel or something like that. I
Turtles
forget
in
what it
Time,
was
yeah.
called. Yeah, Turtles in Time. Like if you like kind of arcadey kind of beat 'em up games, like this is basically like the game for you. It takes like that concept, but then it kind of puts it on his head. Yeah, obviously, like as I mentioned, like your goal is to kind of find where your boyfriends are. So you're going to like all the different areas and interacting with different characters. Like there's a bunch of like students that you like kind of have to fight. And the thing is, after like a wave of people that you fight, the last character alive will give you a chance to recruit them on your team. So if you recruit them, you can like kind of summon them and they'll do like an attack, kind of like similar to like, like those fighting games like Capcom versus Marvel, right? Where you can kind of summon one of
Like
the
switch in and switch out, yeah.
yeah, well, they don't switch in and switch out, but you can kind of press a move and they'll come in and do like a move or something like that. That's essentially what these kind of recruitable characters do. And so it kind of adds that extra element that like, oh, maybe you want to recruit this character or this character instead. But at the same time, there's kind of like a little bit of like a Pokemon collection aspect of it where you want to collect like every variation of like the cheerleader type of character or the like this there's like this tiger wrestling character, so it's like yeah, you want to recruit all of those kind of characters, and so it kind of adds like an extra element that you can do. There's like RPG elements, is like leveling up.
Mm.
That's nothing new for like the modern game, but it is for like a beat 'em up.
Yeah, like
um
I feel like the only time I've seen something like that is the Scott Pilgrim versus the World game, which unfortunately you
mhm.
can't get anymore because they took out the license. But I still have it on my
Oh,
Xbox, and if that Xbox breaks, I
there you
don't have
go.
that game ever. So I'm very careful of that one. But yeah, it does remind me of that because it encourages you to replay some levels, obviously, because you got you're level 1 to there's it's pretty much an RPG because you do have levels to like
Mhm.
1 to 99. There's secret entrances to a few places, and there's like a essentially you can buy some stats, buy items and things like that, and there's different characters you can level up, and so it's kind of almost like a if you ever played like Castle Crashes, same kind of
Mhm.
I guess premise of upgrading and getting the levels and replaying, and I feel like that's kind of the way moving forward beat up should be, because like beat 'em ups are kind of fun and everything, but once you're kind of done, you're kind of done, and it feels like this one kind of has at least some elements to go back to replay it and be better at it, and you get, like and obviously since you do have the progression, once you beat the game, you go back to level 1, you'll probably be like ripping through everyone pretty much.
Well, yeah, well, that's the thing. Like in this game, like you have like the two characters, Misako and Kyoko, but you can if you play it like because I've been playing as Misako, who's like the one who has like black hair, and I accidentally switched and played Kyoko, but she was like on level 4, so I was like, oh, she's like under leveled. I guess like, and she has like her own kind of move sets. Like they have similar moves, but then they have like a different move sets as well. So I wonder like, maybe after I've kind of like finished playing it or something, like I might go back and just kind of kind of power level her and just see if that like makes a big difference or not. But yeah, I'm really liking this game. It's very simple. It's got like you can play it like local co-op. And you can like even put stuff in like allowing like friendly fire and stuff, so you have to be like extra careful if you're like around each other. But yeah, it doesn't try to be it's kind of very self-aware how like kind of ridiculous the story is. Like they even say like while I was playing, like the girl, one of the girls mentions like, yeah, isn't it like so weird that everybody's so violent? They just try like out of nowhere, like people will
They
just
start beating you
start
up.
like fighting and beating you up, and I'm like, oh, that's very very meta. I really like it. And it's very like there's a lot of anime cutscenes and stuff like that, and like the sprite work in the game is very like excellent. I can't recommend it enough. So if you have the time and you like beat 'em up action RPGs, get on River City Girls. Highly, highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'm
It's actually,
assuming it's on everything, like, right?
yeah, even the Nintendo Switch, which is kind of like the new meme these days, and it's pretty cool. Like, there's all these kind of like upgradable stuff that you can buy like certain items that give you like extra abilities or something, but like it doesn't really like it's not like necessary and stuff. I kind of really like um uh uh the that recruitment aspect where you can kind of get those like cool characters. Like there's like an undead character or like a mutated version of these characters that you can kind of recruit as well. And so they're like the extra stronger version of these characters, but because they're stronger, like when you fight them, they're more difficult. So you kind of have to like toss up whether it's worth it to just like try and recruit them or try and just kill them off straight away so you still have like a lot of life and stuff. But speaking of, I guess, like mutations and whatnot, you've actually been what or you finished watching a series called Chernobyl, right?
Yes. I've been meaning to watch this for quite a long time. I guess I didn't really have the time to do it. I really wanted to sit down and absorb this TV show because it did get it's gotten like really rave ratings across the board from pretty much everyone. And yeah, I do agree on this one. It is a mini series, so there's about I think 6 episodes. And it kind of details the disaster of the Chernobyl disaster that happened in 1986. I didn't really know much about it in general before the TV show. I just knew it happened, and there was a nuclear reactor, I guess, meltdown, and there was a big disaster, and there was all this radiation, but I really didn't know. So I think first and foremost, this TV show does a really good job at informing and teaching, not only about this current climate and situation that was at that moment, but as well as exactly what happened and what was the main reasons behind it. I think that's one of its main strengths of this show is that it explains a lot of that stuff in such a way where you can approach it, especially in the last episode when they talk to the, I guess, court, the rulings about what happened in Chernobyl. They do it in such a way where they give you scientific terms, but you can kind of understand what is going on. And kind of what it does, it mainly follows kind of these two characters. They do have Russian names, so I'm not going to pronounce it, but essentially one of them who is a director of the board of the government, and then there's the other guy who is kind of a scientist, and they bring in the scientist in to kind of explain like what the situation is and how do we I guess get rid of this situation. And obviously it is a lot more worse than they thought it was going to be. And I feel like, yeah, a lot of the show is the scientist telling the government guy, the director guy, to be like, hey, this is really serious. We need to do this. Because I guess there's a lot of tension of the scientist being like, you have to do this, you have to do that. And obviously the government guy not understanding, or, there's a lot of things. Obviously at the time, it was the USSR. So obviously there was a lot of pride, I guess, in Russia being like, we don't have to tell anyone this, we can solve it ourselves. And kind of what happened with the, I guess, radiation, disaster and the meltdown. The show does a really good, job also at, I guess, atmosphere as well. It is one of those shows where it does fill you up pretty much with dread, not only with the music, but the way it's kind of shot. Its color palette is very mute, and I feel like it is very fitting. And I feel like they do really good stuff. It reminded me of something like what's that? Dunkirk. Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk, where they have the kind of current ticking always in the background. They kind of do the same thing with like kind of the radiation, ticker thing, and they do that a lot
like
of the
the
scenes.
meter.
Yeah, the meter. So how like really screwed up it is. They do that. Really good sound design with that. But yeah, essentially it does follow a lot of different things of what exactly happened, because I think in the first episode, the first episode in and of itself is literally the reactor burning down kind of like in real time almost. So it doesn't really focus on so it's people in the nuclear reactor. There was an explosion happened and they didn't know how severe the explosion was, so they send a guy go down there, and then within like an hour he basically just dies with a lot of obviously the radiation. And you do see a lot of that. It is very gory and kind of disgusting in such a way to see what actually does happen if you do get radiated like that. and yeah, it does kind of, I guess, show the horror of that, and how they weren't prepared for it.
Yeah.
And they tell some really interesting stories. Obviously, I think in the third or fourth episode, they recruit a bunch of miners, and they just say, yeah, you're pretty much gonna die, but you do this for your country. And they basically recruited these bunch of miners to just be like, you need to dig out like all this like, all this nuclear waste and everything before everything happens, and they do the whole thing. And yeah, I feel like yeah, I guess it just shows like, yeah, the limit that people will go to, obviously, when a disaster does happen. There's even bits of the scene where the reactors got flooded with a bunch of water, so they need to send people in and to drain the water so they can get to work. And there's a lot of, I guess, tense scenes like that, or even like in the fourth or fifth episode when they're trying to clean up the debris. They're just like, yeah, you've got like literally like a minute. You have to run outside, dig all that stuff in, and then literally run back. It's a really tense scene where the guy gets trapped under a rock, of course, and there's all that type of stuff is in the show. But it pretty much does feel it does have a start, middle, and end in such a way of, I guess the scientists trying to confirm to everyone, because everyone wants to be hush hush about what happened. And obviously they had to tell everyone and, tell people that everything's fine, but it really isn't. And then obviously everyone had to evacuate. But yeah, I just really enjoyed the show. It was just really tense moment to moment. It kept me engaged and entertained in such a way to kind of solve this issue, because obviously it never happened before then. And, it's something that is not easily fixable. Because even things that I didn't know, where they needed to cool down the core, they had to fly helicopters above the core, but obviously the radiation's so high, the plane basically melts. And I'm just like, yeah, this is a really severe problem, and I had no idea about any of this stuff. So I felt, yeah, it was a really good informative piece, I would say.
Okay, yeah, awesome. Like, I think because there was because this is the HBO series, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, because I think at the same time, like there was like a Netflix Chernobyl series where I was like, wait, is this the same show? Like, yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, so it's good to see like a slice of history that would have otherwise kind of been kind of missing, and seeing that in a kind of consumable way that isn't like necessarily like a documentary, right? Like it's a way to kind of view history through like the modern means in which we have. Because I think from my understanding, like all the events in this movie, like only was known because there was like somebody who kind of left the USSR and talked about what happened, correct?
Yeah, that's where it's generally based off, because there's a lot of stuff, especially in the last episode, after the credits roll, they give you some information of like the official death count toll for Chernobyl. I think is like literally like 60 people, but it's killed like a lot more people like that, obviously because of radiation and things like
Yeah,
that. So
because
there's a lot of stuff.
because I think like they like my friend was telling me about it, and it's like, yeah, apparently like, yeah, all the radiation like went all the way to like Germany and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But like
yeah,
obviously,
they do raise that point of contention, being like, yeah, we need to kind of stop it now, or else it goes through the water source, and that water source is pretty much used for everyone around Europe. So we could really like, everyone in Europe's kind of screwed almost, and even people like in the Ukraine getting screwed over, with the radiation, and it's kind of
but
like,
they kept it all hush hush, right? Like everybody, it was like, don't tell the general population, just let them go about their every day. So it kind of shows like, the history of the time back then, and how like the USSR tried to like, put everything put everything under the rug, and like, not let the general populace like get like go crazy and worried and stuff like that. So yeah, much to the detriment of like other people. As you said, like they said the official death is 60, but it's probably much more.
yeah, absolutely, and obviously to this day it's still abandoned, and yeah, you can't go there, and it's still like legal to go there. But yeah, I found it very informative. Not only just about the science behind it, but exactly what happened as well. It does remind me of a TV show that I was talking about last year called The Looming Tower. That it's kind of the same premise, where it's kind of like the events that followed up to 9/11. And it kind of gives you an informative look of like how it built up to that point. It's kind of the same way in Chernobyl, where it's kind of like these events and exactly what happened on this event. So I feel like we're going to get more TV shows like that, where like there was an event in time, and it's gonna be dramatized, obviously, but it's gonna have real life information to kind of play upon. I feel like that there is more room for, I guess, mini series of just like one season, and it just tells a really good story that happened in real life. And I feel like that's what Chernobyl does really well. Really top acting from all the performers. That they did get. They're pretty much top of their game. I do remember. I do. You've seen them all the time, like Jared Harris. He's classic English actor. Stellan Skarsgård, who's the I guess the main mainstream thing he's probably been in is probably the Thor movies. He's the main old scientist guy in the first Thor movie. So he's there as well. He's kind of the colonel. But everyone else everyone does really good, job at acting. There's even a bit where obviously a woman's pregnant and she wants to see her kind of dying husband who's been radiated, and there's a lot of that stuff going on, and yeah, top acting from everyone, and yeah, and you got to remember that all this stuff pretty much did happen. Now I did hear that there's going to be another Chernobyl show that's going to be focused more about the other side of things, as some people are just like, no, this didn't happen, or it does. Like, I guess this TV show does paint the Russian people in a bad light. So I think maybe there might be another show. I've heard that there might be another show in regards
like a response to this one, or
yeah, more or less, being like, hey, it wasn't our fault.
Or, well, of course they're gonna say it's not their fault, but I mean, like, I thought you meant like more like there was gonna be like a Chernobyl season 2.
No,
this is gonna be a different like version by other people are gonna create it.
Yeah, pretty much. It kind of reminds me of earlier this year we had the fire fraud documentaries.
Fire Festival. Yeah, Fire Festival, right?
Fire Festival.
I haven't seen it, but like it sounds ridiculous, and I feel like it'll just make me lose faith in humanity if I watch it.
Well, that's the thing. There's actually two documentaries. There's the Netflix one, which I think I've heard is a little bit more disingenuous, and then there's a Hulu one, which is a little bit more like they didn't get the guy to come in and say stuff, but it was a little bit more straightforward.
Yeah, because I think in the guy is Netflix one, right? The guy who
the guy who he talks about it and who did the event, he goes on the Netflix one. So obviously they probably gave him easy ball answers to kind of cure it. But the other one is more like, we're going to expose this.
I see.
Yeah, but
it's always good to have content from both sides in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, regardless of it, I was still informed and entertained with the show Chernobyl. Highly recommend it. Obviously, you're going to be in kind of maybe a mood to watch it. Because, it is kind of depressing in such a way, and it is shot in a depressing manner. But, it's kind of like, it's almost kind of like something like a Schindler's List, where it's filmed really beautifully and things like that, and bad things are happening in the content of the movie or TV show, but it is a good piece of media. So I would recommend Chernobyl, and it's going to be definitely in my top 10 TV shows that came out this year, because it was very interesting, and I was really informed, and it's a really good show. And everyone should watch it, I guess. Absolutely. But everyone, that's going to be us for this week. Remember, you can listen to us on Spotify, iTunes, Libsyn, and our YouTube channel, where we do stream in our TV. We do stream it on our channel, Marketing Movies. So until next time, maybe Henry Cavill's going to be, in the new Chernobyl show. Who knows? But until next time, see you guys.
Catch ya.